I'm Jack, and welcome back because I'm going to give you guys a spoiler review for The Batman. I got to see it again last night, and if you haven't seen my non-spoiler review of this movie, I highly recommend you go check that out while you're at it. And then when you're done with that video, and if you've seen the movie, see yourself right back here so you can see me go into spoilers with the events that have happened in the movie. And before we get started, don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below, so don't forget to do that while you're at it. And this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, then get out of this video now because this is your only warning. And with that said, let's go into spoilers for The Batman. So if you've seen my non-spoiler review of this movie, you know that I loved it. It is such a terrific Batman movie. And to kick things off, I love how the movie opens with the Riddler killing the mayor. I thought just the tension that was built there with how you see the mayor on Halloween night, watch the TV, and he hears of the debate that happened between a runner-up and him. And I love just how you have Riddler in the dark, all the way back there like he came out of a horror movie, just waiting to get the drop on the mayor. And the tension was so well done because you can just feel that you know he's in danger, and the mayor is just unaware that he's back there and that he has a hammer in his hand waiting to kill him. And just, it felt very suspenseful, and it is such a great first scene with this character because he's supposed to be a Zodiac killer kind of a Riddler, and that we do get with Paul Dano. And then it kicks off the whole movie. With that scene, it already sets the tone for the movie. It sets the mood. It sets just the kind of threat Batman is going to be up against. And it is a dark scene, and it does not hold back with it. When you see, once the theme starts to kick in, Riddler gets in there, and he just kills him. And that's a dark opening, but it really sets the stage for the kind of movie you are about to experience. So I thought it was a great opening, and I really liked how Matt Reeves was able to shoot this and how he was able to develop the tension with the Riddler being in the background, with the mayor right there, and the dark, with the TV on, and then he turns it off, and then Riddler gets the drop on him, and that is a dark opening, but it is a very awesome way to kick off the movie. Then we follow Bruce. He gives a narration. This is a detective noir film, and you see the streets of Gotham with all these people and all these dark alleyways and all these criminal activities happening, where you see somebody trying to rob a store, you see somebody graffitiing, you see somebody doing anything criminal related. And I love how you give Bruce is narrating everything that's happening and how it's dark. It really sells you with Gotham City that this is a very nasty place to be in. It's not fun. It's not it's not someplace I would want to go to. And it sells to you that Gotham City is this cruel, dark, gothic, nasty, crime-ridden city. And this part of the movie in the beginning, it sells you that. And it really is elevated due to Bruce's narration. I loved how the bat signal then lights up and you see all these criminals react in horror because this is Batman's second year fighting crime. And you get to see the criminals react in fear because Batman is a symbol of fear. He's a symbol of vengeance, and that's what he's known as. And he scares the criminals. And so once the bat signal lights up, all the criminals start to look up at the sky and they start to get scared because and one of the things I love is they look into like a dark corner that's completely dark. You don't see anything. And they start to think maybe Batman is in there, and that is a really scary thing to them. I love that. It feels like it came out of a horror movie. And then you get to follow these thugs on a train, and they try to beat up this guy. And then you get an awesome entrance with Batman where you hear his footsteps, and from the criminal's point of view, you see Batman slowly come out of the shadows. And that was an awesome entrance. One of the best superhero entrances in a superhero movie, because that was awesome. It felt just like it came out of a horror movie. It felt very noir-like, where the first way we see Batman physically in this movie is from a wide shot of Batman coming out of the shadows and into the light in this dark train station area where all the thugs are watching him. And that is so cool. And then we get, of course, the moment where Batman beats down the thug and says, "I'm vengeance." That is such a cool way to introduce your character physically. And then we get that awesome fight sequence where Batman takes down all those thugs. And then we get to see Bruce and Gordon team up, where it looks like they got to the mayor's house and they found, yep, the mayor's been killed by the serial killer. And you got their first clue of what does a liar do? He lies still. That was really cool. And I love how it opens. I love how you got with the Riddler, with how he kills the mayor, and you see how Batman is introduced, with how it immediately sells you the movie you're watching, what Gotham City's like, the very first time we see Batman, and it gives you that first case with Batman and Gordon. It sells you that in those first 10 to 15 minutes of the movie. It's very well done. Another big aspect that this movie tackles that none of the other Batman movies haven't explored as much, with the exception of Mask of the Phantasm, that is Bruce's psyche. In this movie, we see a Bruce that is very suicidal. He doesn't spend as much time out in the public eye as the billionaire playboy, and instead he spends most of his time being the Batman, because it's all he cares about. It's all he tries to do. He wants to go out there, fight crime. He doesn't care if he kills himself trying. And that I love. You see a Batman who's at a breaking point. He keeps doing this, and he doesn't care if it takes his life to do this, and how Alfred responds to it. And throughout the movie, we really see like just what being Batman is like, is that it's not easy. It is very much a burden that is placed onto Bruce. And I love how throughout the movie we see him wanting to be Batman, but then you see some of those Bruce Wayne aspects and how just the toll it takes to be Batman, and how what it does to him mentally, physically. And you see some of the bruising on his back later on in the movie, because being Batman is not something anybody can just do. And this movie really encapsulates that. And it is probably, again, only Mask of the Phantasm have attempted to do something like this. And I think the Batman does a great job at exploring the psyche and the mindset of Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. And I just love how Matt Reeves was able to explore it, with how we start off with him in this movie and over the course of the movie, and just how he wants to be Batman, and what it does to him. That I think is really well done here. And I love that Matt Reeves was finally able to explore that, because other Batman movies and live action theatrically released haven't really tackled it as much, but this movie does that, and it does it really well. A really cool moment was how the Batmobile entered. I loved how it just turns on in the shadows in front of Penguin and them. It's like haunting. It feels like Jaws, and I just love it. It's such a cool and awesome entrance for the Batmobile. Just like I mentioned before, I did love the dynamic between Batman and Gordon. I love seeing them work together to solve these riddles and try to solve all the murder cases that's being left behind to them by Riddler, and just seeing them team up, especially the thumb drive part and his reaction to it, and just all that. It's real. There's some fun moments when it comes to dialogue in terms of their dynamic. And I love seeing them work together, with how Gordon doesn't really trust any of the cops as much as Batman, and how Batman only trusts Gordon. And I really like that a lot, especially as the cops seem to be very uneasy around Batman. They don't really like him. They're like, oh, this guy's crazy, he dresses up as a bat. Why is he on like the crime scenes? And I like how Gordon defends Batman. He's like, no, I work with him. He's tied into this. He can help us. And I like that little buddy cop dynamic that Batman and Gordon have. There's some fun moments, whether they're up on a rooftop with the bat signal, whether they're at a crime scene, trying to find clues on how to catch the Riddler and what he's going to do next. I really enjoyed their dynamic here. And a character I want to talk about now is the Penguin. We got to see Oswald Cobblepot before he becomes this Penguin, the character we all know, and I really enjoyed Colin Farrell. Again, the prosthetic makeup they put on him, I think, is amazing. I still can't believe that is him. He's one of the more funnier characters, and he had some funny one-liners here and there with the La Rata Alada. That is so... There's some really funny moments that happen with Penguin, and I really like him a lot. He's not as big of a character in this movie as like the Riddler or Catwoman, but Penguin is such a great character, and I think it's awesome that Colin Farrell is getting his own HBO Max series out of the character, and I cannot wait to see him. I love how he fits in this story, and that chase scene between Batman and the Penguin is awesome. In the trailers, it looks cool, but with the full context and you see the whole sequence, the way it's shot and the way it plays out, it's awesome. The camera work is great. The tension there is great. And just the situation with the Penguin, he's so scared and nervous. He's trying to get away from the Batman. And right when he had to cause all this destruction on the road to get away from him, but the Batman finds a way, as he always does, and that is such a cool chase sequence. Just the shots, the visuals, how it looks, just it's so awesome. It is one of the best chase sequences in not just the comic book genre, but just in film. It's really cool. And then another scene I want to bring up here is the scene between Batman and Gil Coulson when they're in the funeral for the mayor and there's a bomb on his neck. It's just such an intense sequence. Probably one of the best scenes that come out of the movie because, again, the Batman comes in through the shadows, like I think is really cool. And just seeing the Riddler through the phone on like FaceTime or something, it is just so intense watching just Gil Coulson in this state where he has a bomb on his neck and it's going to go off in 2 minutes and he has to answer all 3 riddles. That is a very intense scene. I was left on the edge of my seat. I was afraid, is Batman going to make it? Are they going to make it? Is he going to be alive? And just how he has to answer all these riddles and how we learn a lot more about the corruption of Gotham with how there's a mole and how like all the politicians and Riddler's targeting all these people. It is such an intense and very well-directed scene by Matt Reeves. I was really left sitting there so nervous for what Riddler is going to do and for whether Gil Coulson is going to make it out alive, especially as he has a bomb like strapped on his neck. It's a really gripping scene, and it all comes to a head when they get to the final riddle and they have to reveal who's the mole, and then he dies, and then Batman gets knocked down unconscious. And another thing I love is this is a much more grounded Batman. This is a very grounded Batman. And so I love that in that moment, he was still right next to Gil Coulson as he blew up, and then Batman gets knocked out for it. It shows he's not, of course, like a year 20 Batman or someone who's done this for so long that they're able to react fast. He didn't react in time, and so he got knocked out unconscious for it. I love that. And not just in that scene, but just in the movie. There is a lot of scenes in this movie where they show that this is a year 2 Batman who is really tough, but he can still get hurt for it, and that I like to see. And this is just such a great scene that really ties this whole Gil Coulson, this conspiracy with the Riddler, into fruition, but also leaves such a well-directed scene that is very intense and super terrifying in terms of the Riddler with how menacing he is. Another plot point I want to talk about is Catwoman and the Falcone reveal that Falcone is actually Catwoman's father. I really liked it. Zoë Kravitz, I think, is terrific as Selina Kyle, one of my favorite iterations of the character alongside Michelle Pfeiffer. I really liked the dynamic she had with Robert Pattinson as Batman, and I liked how Catwoman, her goal, she just wants to get out of the city because it's not a nice place to be in, and she wants to take this kid, Annika, out of Gotham. And then eventually you find out later in the movie that Annika is killed. Annika. You find out that Annika is killed. And Catwoman wants to kill Falcone for it. And then you find out later on as the movie progresses that once you got to the moment where Catwoman has the gun and she's going to point it at Falcone and kill him, you find out Catwoman is her daughter. such a great scene, such a great reveal, because certain comic book storylines have Catwoman as the daughter of Falcone, and so this movie takes inspiration from that, and I love how it plays out and how it factors into the story. It's just such a great scene because it gives Catwoman a really great arc with how she wants to get out of Gotham. She doesn't want to be here, and she wants to help Annika and all that, only to find out that she's dead, and how she responds to it in that. Because Penguin works for Falcone, it means Falcone's the one she has to go after, and how she's willing to do anything to kill him because the fact that he abandoned her and her mom and didn't do anything and give and even care about her, and then got her killed. And it was just like, got Annika killed, and I gotta kill you now. I think it's just a really great moment. I really liked what they did there, and Zoe Kravitz was excellent in those moments with Falcone, especially when it looked like she's gonna pull the trigger, and then Batman comes in. It's like, no, you can't do this. You did what you had to do. And then adding to Falcone, I know I don't talk much about him in my non-spoiler review, but that's because I feel like I couldn't, even if I could, especially with some of the stuff that happened. So, and then I loved that reveal where apparently when it comes to who the Riddler is targeting, he now is going to target Bruce Wayne, and how that is because his motivation is that Thomas Wayne was going to run for mayor, and ever since he and Martha Wayne were killed, Bruce Wayne got so much sympathy from everybody in the public eye that all the other orphans were just pushed aside. Everybody focused on Bruce because he was like the golden goose of Gotham, and how because of that, it made Riddler feel like he was unimportant to society, that they don't care about him and they don't care about anybody who isn't wealthy or all of these officials, and because the corruption of Gotham. And then you find out that there is a twist with it, and that Thomas Wayne's wife, Martha, is mentally ill, and that how she's been in and out of Arkham State Hospital, and that there's a reporter who had proof of that, and that he wanted to go, this reporter wanted to reveal the information to the Gotham City. But Thomas Wayne knew that if that were to happen, it would ruin their image, and that I just could not let it happen. And so he goes to Falcone, who is a crime boss, very dangerous person, but also helped the Wayne at some point. And so eventually Falcone decides to have this reporter killed, and you see how it gives you the idea that maybe Thomas Wayne and all that, they weren't maybe the brightest people. They might be popular, they're wealthy, but maybe Bruce is starting to find out that maybe his parents aren't exactly what he thought they were. And it ties into the Riddler's scheme with how Riddler wants to stop all these corrupt politicians in Gotham. First the mayor, and then first a DA, all that stuff, and how he was willing to expose the mole, and that mole ended up being Falcone. And I love how Batman starts to get the notion that what he thought earlier, Maroni's family didn't have Wayne family killed, but Falcone was also responsible for the death of the Wayne family. And so I love how Batman even knew that as much as he didn't like Falcone, as much as that happened, he knew, I can't kill. And that's another thing I love. This is the first live action Batman in a Batman movie since George Clooney in Batman and Robin, where he never killed anybody. Not even the car chase sequences. He didn't kill anybody. That I love. I'm the kind of person where if you're going to do a no-kill rule thing and you're building up to it, then stick with the no-kill rule. But if you can pull off something interesting with Batman killing, especially with, I did appreciate what Snyder tried to do with that, then go for it, as long as there's at least a reason to it, rather than a Batman who kills but there's no reason or moral for it. And so I really liked how Batman and Catwoman, they tie to Falcone, and how Riddler's targeting Falcone, and just this whole conspiracy and how it weaves with all of this corruption within the city. I really like the Catwoman aspect and the reveal that she is Falcone's daughter, and how it ties to her own arc and just what happens with Annika, and how she wants to get out of Gotham, and how she's helping Batman take down and try to save the city. but also just because she cares about herself. She cared about Annika and her mom, and that Falcone was just her father and didn't care about her. And so I love how it all led to that moment where she finally gets the point to where she could have killed Falcone. She was going to. Batman comes in. So I love that whole aspect. So I really enjoyed John Turturro as Falcone in this movie. I thought he was really great, just like everybody else in this movie. And I really enjoyed that whole segment of the movie where Catwoman was going to kill Falcone and just how Falcone as a character tied into this whole story. And then another thing I love in this movie is the interrogation scene between Batman and Riddler, who is revealed to be Edward Nashton, the earliest version of the Riddler. So I really like that sequence. It's intense. It is just haunting just to see how Batman, he's looking at Nashton without the Riddler gear. He's locked up behind bars. And it's just like, here you are. I've planned for this moment, and that I know exactly who you are, Batman. That is just such a great scene. The performances from Paul Dano and Robert Pattinson were fabulous. Not just in the whole movie, but even in that specific moment. It is something I really loved. One of the best scenes in the movie. Just seeing how Nashton's like, I planned everything. Everything that happens in this movie, I planned. And I wanted it to lead to this exact moment in time. And how it's like, you and I, we're going to watch the city. We're going to watch it together. And how Batman's very confused by what he meant by that. Because it's like, oh, you didn't solve that. You didn't find out that part yet. And just how Riddler reveals his motivation for how he's doing this because he envied Bruce for all the sympathy that Gotham City and the public gave to him because he was the son of the Wayne family and how popular they were in Gotham. And so I love how, because of that, Edward and all these other orphans felt neglected. Because of it, they felt like they didn't matter as much as Bruce did, because even Bruce became an orphan because of it. But Bruce got all the sympathy because he's a Wayne. And so I love how Edward became the Riddler because not only was he very envious of Bruce, but he was also very much envious of all the people in Gotham in power. He didn't care, like all the politicians, because he's like, you're dirty, you're corrupt, you have secrets, I am willing to just expose all of these people. And so he goes off on a killing spree, and he even idolized Batman for what he does. And another thing that I also love here is how Batman, of course, earlier in the movie, he's just the symbol of fear. He's scary to a lot of the criminals in Gotham, and he thinks that going out at night, brutally beating up the people and striking fear into the hearts of criminals. And he realizes maybe this isn't doing what he hoped it was going to do. And then I love that instead in that movie, in the third act of this movie, you find out from that moment forward, he's doing this the wrong way. He's not going about this the way he should be. And I love that, especially with the Riddler, with how Riddler, he's inspired by Batman to dress up as the Riddler, be this serial killer who goes out murdering all the politicians and corrupted officials in Gotham City. And how Batman doesn't want to inspire all these villains, but rather he becomes the symbol of hope. And that is leading into the third act, where Batman finds out the plan, all the water, Riddler's master plan, starts to unfold, and you start to see all the water from Gotham's reservoir pouring into the city, and it's causing the city to be very unsafe to be in, so everyone's trying to take shelter. So they go to Gotham Square Garden, and how you have all these Riddler thugs with sniper rifles. They're willing to kill the mayor, who was running against the mayor earlier on in the movie. And you see Batman and Catwoman. Batman especially, he goes in there, he takes them down in an awesome fight sequence that reminded me of the Arkham video games. And he takes them down, and then Catwoman comes and saves him. They have a little moment like, it's okay. And then a Riddler thug comes in there, tries to kill Catwoman. Batman injured, he's down on the ground, he took something, and then he comes out at the Riddler thug and he tries to beat him brutally, looked like he's about to break his one rule, and then Gordon comes in and stops him from killing the thug. And I love that. I didn't catch this on first viewing, but I think on second viewing, if I'm not mistaken, that thug that Batman looked like he was about to kill in the third act was the guy he talked to in the cemetery that said, oh, maybe that mayor deserved what was coming for him. I might be wrong, but it looked like him. And if that is him, I think that would be awesome with what ended up happening with him and how it progresses Bruce's arc in this movie. And I love that when Gord catches him and is like, who are you? And the thug responds, I'm vengeance. It snapped. Something snapped in Batman's mind. It made him think he's doing this the wrong way. That what he's doing isn't really the way he should do things in Gotham. And then I loved how, again, and then more chaos happened in the garden, and then an electrical wire looks like it's about to fall or it's about to kill all the people there because, again, it's flooded. The whole area is being flooded, and then Batman saves the day, and he goes down there and he opens a flare and he sees all those trapped civilians, and everybody knows he's the symbol of fear. He scares people, especially the criminals, because he was a symbol of vengeance by the beginning. And I love how he offers his hand to the mayor, and then a little kid comes up and he takes his hand, and then everybody starts to follow suit. I love how in this movie, Batman starts out as this dark knight and that he scares the criminals. And then by the end of the movie, he becomes the symbol of hope for Gotham City. And I love how even after that moment with the flare, you see how Batman is helping all these people, and he's helping Gotham officials evacuate all these people from Gotham, especially with all the flooding and all the danger that just happened thanks to the Riddler. And that's just such a great moment. Then you have a monologue with how Batman is like, just that maybe what he was doing was wrong and that there is another way to do things. And I love how you have the moment where he carries this person and then lies this person down to be evacuated, and how he even stayed. It was like he could have left, but he didn't. He stayed because he cared about the people. And I love how even the people, they love Batman by the end of this movie. And then the Gotham officials, the police department, they got Batman's respect. They finally, it gave us this moment where by the start of the movie, the cops, they're like, why is Batman our crime scenes? And then by the end of this movie, he's a symbol of hope for Gotham City. And I love that a lot, and that he knew the crime will never sleep. That now that Falcone is dead, and even like the scene with Catwoman in the end, now that Batman is the symbol of hope of Gotham, now that Falcone is gone, there is going to be a surge of people wanting to take control of the city, and that they're going to have to be ready for what's coming, and that Catwoman's like, I am going to leave Gotham while I'm at it. And then Batman decided to stay behind. They had a nice little moment before they depart, which I thought was beautiful, the really touching moment between the two of them, because you saw how they cared about one another and that they really start to have something for one another. But Batman knew, I have to protect Gotham. And so Catwoman decides to drive off onto her motorcycle. And I do think we're probably going to see her again in the sequel. I have no doubt about that. And how Batman's now a symbol of hope. And I love that so much with the psych. How at the start of the movie, Bruce, he cares more about being Batman. He strikes fear into his enemies' hearts. And then as the movie progresses, especially when he got to the end, he finally becomes the symbol of hope that the city needs. And I love that, especially with Alfred, with how he ties into everything. And I know I didn't talk much about Alfred because I loved Alfred. I really liked Andy Serkis as his character, even though I would have liked more of him in this movie. And thankfully I didn't kill him off, because when it looked like when a bomb went off in Wayne Tower, I was so scared. Oh, don't kill off Alfred. You can't kill off Alfred. And thankfully he's alive. And how he was like, I tried to find the person that killed your parents, and just how he ties into Bruce's character. Really love their dynamic. And even though I would have liked more of Alfred, I love that we got of him here, and I can't wait to see him in sequels. And I love how this movie ends where it feels like Spider-Man 1 by Sam Raimi, where there are some things that are left hanging, like, oh, they could continue this in a follow-up, but for the most part, it it wraps up the story. It feels complete by the end. And then there's one scene around the end where Riddler's in jail. He reacts to the fact that, people are being evacuated from Gotham. Batman thwarts his plans, and how he gets all sad about it. And then you hear an unnamed Arkham prisoner start to talk to him about saying, oh, it's okay. One day you're on top, and the next day you're a clown. And then how he talked about how people love a comeback and an underdog and all that. And just, you wonder who it is. And then you find out he is credited as an unnamed Arkham prisoner. But those who know that is indeed the Joker, played by Barry Keoghan, if I pronounce his last name incorrectly. He was Druig from Eternals, and he was in The Killing of a Sacred Deer, Dunkirk, The Green Knight, and I think him as Joker, I think, is awesome. And I do like that they kept this scene, because there is another scene where Batman was going to interact with Joker earlier on in the movie, but I'm actually glad that they kind of cut it and decided to keep this one, because I think that if they introduced Joker earlier, it would have taken a lot of the spotlight from him. But I did love that moment. I did enjoy that moment where they revealed Barry as Joker from behind bars, even though you don't know. Has he become the Joker yet? Or is that something we still have yet to see? Like, maybe did he and Batman already meet up with one another? Did they already have a fight? Did they confront one another at one point before this movie? Or is that yet to happen? Or will we see that later? I feel like we could, depending on what Matt Reeves wants to do with the character. I think it's inevitable that we're going to get something between Batman and Joker, because, again, Joker is Batman's most iconic villain. And I think maybe not in Batman 2, or maybe in a Batman 3, we're going to see them face off one another. I feel like it's inevitable that we're going to probably see that happen, as much as I love to see all these more newer Batman threats. And so we have a moment and then Joker gives Riddler a riddle about what is something that is very valuable if you have very little of them. I don't know if I said it correctly, and that is a friend, and how it looks like Riddler and Joker are going to become friends with one another. And I think it'd be cool to see them show up in a follow-up if Matt Reeves has more plans with them. And that's the one scene where some people could just say maybe you could get rid of it because it feels like a sequel tease. But I think it's a nice place to wrap up in the Riddler's character with everything that happened to him. It kind of leaves a little bit of a groundwork for something else could happen with him in the future. But it feels like a nice way to wrap up his story in this movie. And then I loved how Batman and Catwoman, they drive off after they had their final scene in this movie, and then cuts to the credits. And yeah, I loved The Batman. I think it is one of the best Batman movies and DC movies ever made. Matt Reeves is just such the perfect choice to direct this movie, and I love what he was able to do with it. And I really liked just all the iterations of these characters, because I think my second viewing easily solidifies that Robert Pattinson is my favorite live-action Batman. I love him so much, this character. I love him as an actor, and he knocked it out of the park here. Catwoman, I'm still torn between Zoë Kravitz and Michelle Pfeiffer for being my favorite Catwoman. Riddler, again, I love Gotham's Riddler. I did enjoy Jim Carrey's, but Paul Dano's Riddler was terrifying. It was very menacing in a good way. Paul Dano was really great. And Colin Farrell was a really good Penguin. I really liked Jeffrey Wright as Gordon, and so as Andy Serkis as Alfred. So I love the cast. I loved everybody, but this viewing did solidify that Robert is officially my favorite live-action Batman. Favorite Batman movie, though, that's still tough. It is still a two-way tie between this and The Dark Knight. And I am going to put up a Batman ranking video at some point soon. So you will be able to see how I rank all the Batman movies after this video. And yeah, I loved the movie so much. I hope you guys go see it in theaters. It is so good to finally have a new standalone Batman movie the first time in live action since The Dark Knight Rises 10 years ago. I loved it. It is such a well-made movie, and it's easily one of the best comic book movies ever made. I had a blast with The Batman. It was worth the long wait to get this movie to come out. It was absolutely worth it, and I hope Matt Reeves and the crew, y'all are giving yourselves a pat on the back. Y'all did a great and a fantastic job with this movie, and I am so excited to see what they have in store for this planned universe, because they are going to make a Penguin TV show on HBO Max, a Gotham PD police show for HBO Max, and then a sequel, and I would love to see them do villains like either Mr. Freeze or the Court of Owls or just anybody. I'm so pumped. Like, I am okay with any villain that Matt Reeves wants to do, because I loved this movie. So there you have it. That is my spoiler review of The Batman. I probably left out a few things, but I didn't want to make this video as long as some other videos I might have done. So yeah, let me know down below in the comment section, what did you think of The Batman? I'd love to hear it down below, and because it's a spoiler review, you can go ahead and spoil away in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you think of this movie and certain moments or even certain characters. Is this your new favorite Batman movie? Is Pattinson your favorite Batman? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear all that. And thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button. And stay tuned for more.